Okay, so basically the agenda, very quickly, we will introduce a little bit about what is Design Ops Assembly, what is Bliss, and then a little bit what is Friends of Figma here in Portugal. And then we will give a little bit to our speakers and talk about the topics that we will eventually going to approach today. And then eventually we'll talk because that's what we are here for. And then we will have an open Q&A. So far so good, I think. Isabella, would you
Raquel,
like to?
Raquel,
Yeah,
I think the presentation here at home, we can only
yeah.
see the first slide, actually.
Uh,
Kasia, you see the same? You see only the first, right?
yeah.
Slide. Yeah,
Yes,
not changing.
Let me try again to
Yeah,
see.
we can see changing on the TV behind you,
exactly.
but not. Okay.
Okay, I think now you are seeing about the door, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
perfect. First of
Isabella, would
all, okay,
yeah,
I'll say.
yeah. Go.
First of all, I'll say a few thanks. Thank yous. Raquel and Rita, thank you very much for the partnership. This is a very, very special event that we are doing with you, Friends of Figma. And it was very amazing to see you preparing everything with a lot of love and care. So I really hope everybody enjoy this event today. I'll thank also Martina. Martina is there. Martina works with me in Design Ops, and as I'm sick today and I couldn't come to the office, couldn't go to the office, she's there holding it bravely. So thank you, Martina, for it. And I'm going to present very briefly the Design Ops Assembly for those who doesn't know already. The Design Ops Assembly is a community created by these two really amazing folks, Meredith and Adam. It started in 2017 as a very small meetup group of design ops leads in San Francisco, and now it's spread in 11 countries. You can jump to the other slide. Um, Me and Antonio, that is freeze here at home again. Ah.
Let me share again quickly, and there you go.
Yeah. Me and Antonio, and I think Antonio is there. No, Antonio, say hi.
Hi.
Thank you. We are super glad to be chapter leads in Portugal. This is our third event, and this year, three more events are coming. The next one we'll try to do it in presence, and let's see if we can, and if I'm not sick, and if I can go there for us to be together. And this QR code there is there. Please don't miss the chance to scan it and enter in this like community of Design Ops Assembly. There you'll find a lot of channels, really nice channels that you can see job offers. There's a channel Ask Me Anything, and we have our local chapter community, which is hashtag local underline Portugal. So please enter in the Slack channel. It's really worth it. And the next one, just to say a little bit about Bliss. Bliss, as some of you are there, we are at the moment with around 70 designers. And we have this beautiful office in Lisbon with a beach view. We have an office in Porto, and this year we'll have soon an office in Copenhagen, in Denmark. So we are very glad for it. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Raquel, for
Thank you,
organizing
Isabella.
everything. So
Thank you
it's
so much. Okay, and now we are just going to talk briefly about. I'm sorry for this slide situation, but it's part of the dynamic, right? Let's hope. Okay. Yeah, just a quick share about the Friends of Figma. So this is an official community. So Figma is aware that we exist, okay? And we basically have support from Figma to basically organize events. We're always searching for people to organize events. So in case you work on a company or you and self would like to talk about something, you can reach out and then we can see our agenda. We do some kind of events. Last year, I think we did a lot of them, and I can show you the preview of our screen so you can see the quantity of what we had so far. And we basically have everything that you can think of. So we have meetups, we can have workshops, we can have partnerships mostly with designers, companies, or even professionals. And yeah, basically, we are now starting with the design ops assembly, and we are very excited. And hopefully, you can join us in future events, whether it's on person or online. We usually do hybrid, and we usually speak in English because we have a more bigger target. But we can also and usually have events only in Portuguese. So basically, follow us, and then eventually we'll learn more about the events. And feel free to reach out if you have any idea or wanted to partnership with us. Basically, that's the message for today. And now, uh, maybe this is not that necessary, but I can just say who I am very quickly.
Try to move it out to see if it works. Maybe it's slower.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm having this issue with sharing, so probably it's from my side. Sorry. Just to basically introduce this person that is occupying your screen on the right side. Well, depends if it's mirrored, but you get it. I'm Raquel. I've basically been doing design operations on Volkswagen Digital Solution, more specifically to one of the clients of VW, which is MIN Truck and Buses. It's a truck brand. You probably don't know it. It's perfectly normal. And basically, I'll be here, the moderator, basically just guiding these beautiful people on the talk and try not to mess up with the slides. So let's see. And now I will give the stage for a quick introduction for our first speakers, when we will talk about the difference between disciplines. So I will start with our amazing Rita, which is also part of Friends of Figma. So go for it.
Hi everyone, I see there is a few people joining now. Welcome and sorry if you don't have a seat. There is a few benches somewhere else that you can try to grab, or a few chairs. Okay. Then I'm Rita. Nice to meet you all. As Raquel said, I'm also at Friends of Figma, and I work in Berlin as a design ops specialist at a company called Aviv Group that basically owns some of the biggest real estate agencies that not agencies, websites. So basically where you see the listings like Ideal Estates, the exact same, but in different cities in Europe. So yeah, I'm full remote. So normally I'm working from different places, but I'm based in Berlin and I'm Portuguese. So yeah, it would be really nice to meet you all here today. And now to Mariana.
I just realized that we're in the same order. Well, kind of opposite.
Yeah.
On the screen it works, but then here it doesn't. So, hello, I am Mariana. I'm currently working at Vinted in Berlin too. It's funny because we're both based there, but we haven't met each other. So this is the first time, and I'm currently the design system manager for Vinted. So it's kind of like product manager role, but to all of the nuances of design systems. And also in addition to working at Vinted, I also teach, and I can see some faces that I've seen around the school that I was teaching just until last year. I think that's the overview of it.
Alright, so maybe I can jump in. I'm Marcia, I'm a product designer also at Volkswagen Digital Solutions, and I've been integrated in projects that are focused on restructuring digital improvements to the systems that our internal users use. I've been working since forever as a designer, most recently, like last 4 years as a product designer specifically. And I want to thank Friends of Figma Portugal and Design Ops Assembly for inviting us to be speaking here today. I'm very excited for this.
Thank you. And now I will have the slide for the next speakers, but I think it's best when we switch off the topic, I will go and give them the opportunity to present. So now we will jump in to the first topic. So let me just guarantee that you are seeing the same. Now I think it's switched, right?
Yeah, I think now it's working.
Okay, is it working, right? Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, great. So basically, the first topic that we decided to talk here today, it's basically to talk a little bit about the difference between the disciplines. And when we define the disciplines here, it's basically the difference between a product designer, someone that does design systems, so perhaps a design system designer. Even the title is a little bit difficult to use on the market. And also design ops designer. I never see it because I think we usually just put design ops. Basically, just to see exactly what each these roles or scopes eventually do, and exactly how what are the overlaps between them, because at least here in Europe mostly it's very common to have a lot of overlap still. And if design system is the same as design ops, and hopefully if you are attentive to the another two questions, I think you will know how to answer this one. But it's because a very cliche question that we usually have, so we thought we should put it here as well, in case someone at home has the same doubt. So I will start with the first one. Does anyone would like to start about what your feelings about the difference between these three scopes? So feel free to start. No pressure.
No pressure. We're just
Okay, maybe I can start by order of the
Yeah.
question. So product designer is a designer that I like to think as a matchmaker between user needs and business goals. And we usually have many hats that we put on throughout our process. Always with these two things in mind. So if we have to do some user research or marketing research, competitor, we put that hat on. If we have to say ideate, we have to put that ideation hat on, maybe negotiate with business stakeholders when we found out from your research or interviewing sites that maybe the user needs are different from their goals, you have to put that negotiator hat, and so on and so forth, like prototyping, being like a carpenter, and testing as well, being like a scientist, I had to put on. And basically, it's a very product focused. It could be like a system, it could be like an application, and it's always having these two sides to have a human touch, contact touch with the users, and being an advocate for that into the business. So a lot of times we work. I think this is a common experience. We as a designers work. With business people that don't have design context, but a lot of times also designers don't have business context, and this might be a struggle that we have to deal with. And I think it's one of the most interesting challenges that product designers have. And I think this is also where some things overlap to the other roles.
and I'll pick up on that now, also following the order and explaining a little bit what's a design system designer, if there's even that role.
Yeah.
Because design systems, as we know them today, they're not that old as a discipline, as an area of design. And so usually the natural progress in organization is that product designers are going to find the need to have a design system because the engineering product teams are growing, and then they find the need of having the systematization of what they're building in products. And so usually you have a product designer then just also wearing the hat of a systems thinker, let's put it that way. And it's not that uncommon to think that these two are the same, but while they're both designing products, because we can think of a design system as a product, the focuses are completely different. So picking up from what Marcia said, just to make it clear, everyone here has a clear understanding of what a design system is. Yeah?
Hopefully, yeah.
So
Okay.
the whole like UI kit, having components, having the foundations and so on. So when you're a design system designer, you're not going to be looking at the features of the product. You're going to be thinking of how can I make this component scalable? And so what are the full properties that it should have? And what are the, let's put it, the minimum viable number of properties that are scalable enough, but not too restrictive. So a design system designer is going to have a lot of attention to detail. And it's something that usually product designers don't really need to be paying attention to. I feel like I'm just focusing on one thing and there's something else about design system designers. But yeah, the focus to detail and not thinking of a product like as a whole, and thinking of what are the user needs and how does this product feature match the user's journey and the user needs.
And I think at the market, you probably are aware, but you can even see on job titles principal product designer or staff product designer that usually do design systems. So that's why people also make mistakes, because I saw the same title doing different things. So I already saw staff product design for design systems, and already saw staff product design for internal products. So I think that's also making people more confused about exactly what does what. Yeah.
I think that this makes a perfect connection with the design ops, because a staff designer is someone with a very deep understanding of the organization, and they know how the products connect to one another, and they know which teams do what and what do they need. And so it's not uncommon to have staff designers working on either design systems or design ops. Maybe I will hand over the mic to you.
And I feel like I have a very hard job because design ops is not really known in Portugal, and it's also not very common nowadays. It's getting more and more now common between the design community. I would say it really depends what is the design ops, depending on the organization you work for, depending on the size of the company, on how is the organization organized in general. But I would say there is always two dimensions on it. The first one is processes. So taking care of all the processes and making sure that everything they need, no matter if they are design systems designer or if they are product designer, UI designers, wherever we have on the team, researchers, we have to make sure that they have tools to work and that those tools work. Hi, you want to come in? Yes. Hello. 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 So we want to make sure that the tools work. You can sit here if you want. It's okay. It's okay. It's really close, but and it's basically taking care of making sure that everything works, and also to look for the best solutions and for the best processes for you to work with your teams, not only with your peers in design, but also with your product managers, with the rest of the teams. And that's where the people come, which is the more important dimension of it, I would say so, which is basically being the eyes and ears of all of you. We are not expecting, especially on a big organization, that you go to the director and say, I don't like this and that and that, right? So on these organizations, you normally come to us. And then what we do is to make sure that that information goes to the top and that everyone is going to know what's going on the bottom side, especially when we have more levels than just manager and designer. Normally there is more and more hierarchies on these big companies, and we take care of making sure that we are advocating for our designers, that they are having what they need, that they have the nice working hours, that they are doing whatever they need. So we kind of take care of creating this sense of community and trying to retain talent inside of the organization.
And usually sometimes it could be mixed up whether with management or with agile enablers, because we can go helping with ways of working or routines or whatever, but then with management like improvement or performance or whatever. So
and often people are like, what are you guys doing? So and that's when you actually know that you are doing something good, because if things are working and people don't notice you, that's when you know actually if nobody is having any issue and they are like, what is design ops doing? Maybe he's doing something because things are working. So then we are more on the background, and we make sure that everything you say here and there on design critiques, on design retros, everything you share, it's coming as an information to the top. Of course, not sharing who said what, but we share where do we have pain points, where do we actually need to hire more people because this designer is struggling, doesn't have enough time to do all the tasks. So basically, we are kind of helping on that.
Yeah, when I have to explain, with family that are older, like what I do, I basically say that I'm a designer that helps other designers.
Okay, I say I work on the computer.
I also have that level. I also have that level, but for those who understand more design, I basically explain like that. And it's very interesting because what we eventually are talking now, for instance, product designer, I think it's really common what you said, Mariana, that eventually start with a product designer that wants to tackle in because it sees the need. I don't know how you feel about it because you work not with Portuguese marketed, but you are Portuguese, so eventually we'll have colleagues. The feeling that I have nowadays, at least in Portugal, is that usually you have a product designer that if eventually convince the boss that the design system is a good idea, so eventually you will start to allocate time on that, and maybe 50-50 with the project. And even it might do it 100%, but it's really hard to have the title or the allocation. So people just continue with UX UI designer or product designer. And I think it's very common situation here in Portugal, because in Portugal they also hire people to do everything, like the designer with front end dev skills. It's a topic that could be tense, but yeah. And I was wondering if you already experienced that or saw that happening in your surroundings, and because you Rita and Mariana work with abroad, if you feel that it's more clear out there that a product designer does this and design system does that and design ops does this. So yeah, first we can talk about maybe experience in Portugal. Yeah, I don't know who would like to start.
This is a tough one.
Yeah.
Are we going to convince people to move forward, like
Yeah,
to
to
another
move
country or
abroad.
something?
Yeah. Hopefully not.
You want to start?
Sure, yeah, I can start. So I think that the issues that we face here in terms of companies wanting one person who has several roles also happens on the outside. It really depends on the maturity of the company in terms of design, in terms of technology. If the technology is not that big of a deal in the company because it's old school sales,
Yeah.
and that's gonna happen still, even if you're outside of Portugal. But yeah, the design systems, design ops, they're very new things, even though they've been around for more than a decade now. They're still quite new, and then explaining the value of having these teams that are not producing stuff, because product designers are going to build features. It's going to be launched to the external crowd and to the end users. But design ops and design systems, the value is a bit indirect, and so it's always difficult to explain that there are different disciplines, different teams. They need their own resources. And I see this challenge not only in Portugal, but also
So maybe
abroad.
the question is about the design maturity in not a geographical phenomenon, perhaps, right? Because even in
Yeah.
Portugal, we work a lot with abroad,
Yeah.
so it can be a little bit unfair to do a geographic classification. Maybe it's more related to the design maturity, right? Because eventually we might have the hierarchy or the roles. And is it normal for you to see other companies with design ops roles or design system roles, or only product designer?
I think it's getting more common,
Mhm.
especially in Berlin. I'm there since 2019. I think it's getting more and more appearing. At the time, there was no designs. I was doing design system, and I was not called design system designer. I was called product designer. So that was the name at the time. There was not a name. There was a designer that was good at it and was doing that basically, and it was hired as a product designer. And the same with design ops. I started doing design ops, and I was a design systems at the time, and then I was doing design ops, and I was a designer that was good at design systems and doing design ops. And then things kind of go like this, and we kind of try to have an evolution. I think it really depends on the people that form the organization itself. There are people and directors and leadership that understand the power of these, also have more resources. Normally, we are talking about bigger companies that already understand the value of having this type of specialized roles, which is not that common in Portugal, but also it's not common in other countries of Europe. And then you start seeing it way more now, because I feel like people are starting seeing what's the benefit of this. How, for example, in design ops, we often do metrics, and also often we evaluate how much money are we spending, how much resources, what are we getting back, what's the return of investment. All of these things, we kind of prove the space of design in the company, which a manager with everything they have to do, they don't have time to create these kind of things. It's the same as a designer that it's really good at doing components, but then doesn't have time to focus on creating an entire design system. Yeah. So then you kind of start seeing that there is benefits, and then there are some leadership that understands, and I think it's getting more and more now often common.
Yeah. And I'm thinking that there's a big variant to it, which is the company product led or not? Because in those cases, of course, you're going to have larger teams for products, and when the product is only secondary to the activity of the company, then the investment is going to be completely different. They're most likely outsource, or even if they have in-source resources, it's going to be very limited. So I think that being product-led is also one of the key factors.
Yeah, absolutely. I can also see that design maturity comes along with the growth of a company as well. So it's not just having people that are more informed and curious about designers and product designers or any kind of designers that they have at the moment. It's also how willing the company is to invest in teams like that. Because a lot of times, as you were saying, they have product designers that do things that have nothing to do with product design, or even UI designers or UX designers that do things that have to do with their expertise as well. So it's very interesting to see that. I believe it's very common to see big companies, they can manage to upscale their team. Smaller companies, not so much. It's very rare to see like a design ops expert in a really small company.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Like, probably design ops or design system is also more often on bigger companies, because let's say a startup probably is one people that does everything, because maybe just one designer or two. So I think it's interesting, and you can guys share with me. I think it's a more role of the company, bigger one, but or eventually we'll have more designers to justify your need, right? That's basically, I think, that's why it's so difficult for people to say that they need a design system or design ops, because usually like 2-3 people, and they think maybe it's not realistic, you know?
Yeah, they can manage themselves.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. So passing to the second question, maybe how has been your experience so far? Because you probably had overlaps to get here, right? So, and or you're probably living. So which overlaps do you usually see that you think, this is definitely like a design ops and I'm doing it, or vice versa?
Marcy can start. I'm pretty sure that she has a lot.
Yeah.
You know what? Thinking of this, I actually think of very high level stuff. So I was mentioning being an advocate for user needs. I think that's very like the common ground for designers in general. And sometimes you also want to put that hat, but it's not mandatory if you are a designer. Maybe you don't want to be an advocate in your company, and that's super fine. Like,
Yeah, you're doing what your job.
Yeah, exactly. You're doing what you're paid for, and that's absolutely fine. But I do think, like, for example, for design ops, maybe that's more present in the way that you work with teams. And for product designers, maybe more this part, it's the connection with very diverse teams. So you work with business stakeholders, product owners, users, product managers, developers, QA testers, agile enablers. Like, you can put a whole team in there, and you have to manage to deal with all these people. And this hat that you put as an advocate may also come when you are dealing with different people. You have to adapt to that as well. I think that's very common in all of us designers, to have this urge to call your attention. Okay, this is really important. Let's just onboard these business people or developers to understand our processes. And processes, I think it's also a key word.
Yeah, process, right? You eventually go like, design ops.
The only thing I do is process design. But I think, definitely there are overlaps. And as you were saying, this really depends on the size of the company. And you see amazing design systems there that are in companies with 10 designers. And you also see amazing design systems in companies with 50 designers, that you see shitty design systems in companies that have a lot of resources. And then this really depends on the people that are inside. But I think there are always overlaps. And you can see that, I see that a lot, especially when I see in very small companies that we have product designers, for example, that do a lot of design system and design ops work. And examples of that is like when a product designer is more senior and starts creating a process, and then everyone starts following, and then this person is kind of already taking time to help the juniors to start that process. And then this is kind of already kind of design ops. And also there is always the senior or sometimes even mid-level that already understands a few things that don't work work, and then comes to the managers and say, actually, this doesn't work for most of our members of the team, and there is an overlap. So this is kind of the things that design ops will take out of your shoulder once there is the team there, hopefully, not always. But also on the design system, the same thing. There is product designers that already have a very thinking system, and when they are designing, they already have an idea of how will I scale this, how will I maintain this in the future, and then they ended up eventually creating a few components here and there, and then they kind of are already good on it, and then they start. And for example, in my company, we have open positions for product designers. When they are with less work on their initiatives, they can jump in and create components and contribute to the design system because they are very good at it. And so there is always overlaps on these kind of things. And as for me as design ops, I also sometimes help on design system or on product design. So there is always an overlap also. So
yeah. I think I can add a different perspective to this because I'm thinking of a research project that happened within my team in the last quarter. So one of our designers from the design system team and one of the engineers, they did this research to understand what are the gaps, the issues that designers, so product designers are facing when they are doing the handoff to engineers. So we really wanted to understand what role was the design system playing in that handoff process, and also what kind of pain points were they facing that perhaps we could tackle. And they did an amazing job. So we had lots of insights, but then the conclusion was, well, not the final conclusion, but one of the conclusions that we had was that some of the issues in this handoff was not for the design system team to tackle. So, for example, some I'm trying to think of something in specific. So some of the engineers said that it was kind of difficult to inspect files, Figma files, when they were implementing the solutions. And then we realized that it was due to how the designers were actually using Figma. So even though we can, from a design system perspective, make sure that our components are as easy to adopt and to implement as possible, the way that designers work with Figma, even though we really want to help them in that process, it's out of our scope. So it's easy for us to see these gaps and see these pains and think, oh, I can just fix it. I can provide with annotation, like components or templates for design files, but that's out of our scope. So it's a different perspective, but it's really easy to try to put on all of the hats.
I would like to add that at the moment in my job, I'm actually supporting designers with Figma.
Yeah.
So the design ops, in my perspective.
yes, it's
And
way
this-
more design ops.
Yeah. And this could, change a little bit, but in my perspective, or from my reality, because they are not 100%, comfortable about the new releases, or they don't know, the complexity, because I think usually when you're doing a design system, you spend a lot more time on
That's
Figma
cool.
than the
Yeah.
other ones that are just product designer. And then we got excited, and then we bunched a lot of things, and they were like, but
I don't know how to use auto layouts.
Yes.
Yes,
Kind of
auto
That's
layout.
the big thing.
Yeah, as like, I don't know, 5 years or more.
Maybe more, I think.
Yeah.
And people don't still use it because they're so used to do things in their own way that then they have to face auto layout and they think, no. And then they would just go and do
I think that's also part of our work, that we help
Yes.
design systems team to actually advocate for using things and to how to use them, because you might be really good at design system and say, hey, there is this component that solves all of your problems, but then if you don't keep advocating that, then it kind of gets lost, and that's where we can jump in. And when there is collaboration between these two teams, things work very well, but that's really hard to get because it's also design systems are kind of still responsible for doing that, and then we are also still responsible for kind of maintaining that and helping that inside Figma. So it's kind of hard to get to this process and to be oiled on this, but once you get it, it works really well.
And you need to have those two teams because
Yes.
just a bit more context, we have the design ops department, but currently we only have design system team and accessibility team. So
Okay.
design ops exists as this umbrella of like horizontal service to the product teams, but then there's no Rita there.
Yeah.
to make
Yeah,
this
I used to
bridge.
work like that.
Yeah.
I used to be in a design system team that we were responsible for doing it was even called design ops and design systems. So we were doing all the work, but then it didn't work very well. So then nowadays I work in design ops, and then we have a team of design systems.
Yeah, for instance, I am design ops, but I have the design system responsibility inside,
Exactly.
so I don't
Yes.
have a specific team or a specific, role for that. And I think that's also a common step. So usually you do design ops that do a bunch of tasks, and one of them can be a design system. And when the design system grows, then you think, okay, maybe this deserves a team or
Exactly.
a person allocated. And I think it's an interesting conclusion that we have here a lot of different evolutions.
Yes.
So it's quite funny. Regarding research, for instance, I think it's a topic even design ops also can have research ops. Do you think that research ops should exist on the design ops profile? Because I think research is tricky, for instance, for product designers to do it. And until when a research is from product designer or to the design system, or design ops can help them. Because, for instance, for a component, you have to research the use cases and so on. If you don't overlap or at least work with the product designers, it can be tricky to create a real component. What do you think about that? Like how research overlap between these three profiles can be tricky, right?
Very.
Yeah. I mean, research ops, I've seen it even most recently than the other roles.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one is
and
really the
I
new
think-
trend.
I think it's still defining itself, like the questions you posed. I cannot answer them, like I don't know if a research ops person or team will be focused on one thing specifically. Being operations, at least my expectation as a product designer would be, okay, look, I need a set of users to conduct these tests, please help me out. Like
Yeah.
gathering the users, having the scripts, having the environment to test it.
Yeah.
But maybe they need a more broad field for research, like business research that has to do with the products that the company has. So, I mean, it could be anything.
And I'm asking this as a little bit of also personal question because now at my design ops team we're considering to invest more on research, and then you think like, okay, how we do this? Because even for me it's a little bit new to establish like research assets and ways of working because research I'm a little bit more green because the other ones are more easy. A component, it's more technical, more laborious, let's say. But research is even for a component. How much do you think it's a collaboration with the product designer? How much you decide whether it's a need for that product designer or not? And
Oh.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, it should always be a collaboration with the product designers because creating a design system, we're not doing it because we really like components and we really like to create rules.
yeah,
So and oh, now I have a lot of things in my mind. So
yeah.
From a design system team perspective, you're gonna see that there is this wide range of components that we haven't covered yet, and we should do them as soon as possible. But that it's not feasible. We don't have unlimited resources. We don't have unlimited time, and we need to make sure that whatever we are delivering as a team is going to be used. So we need to make sure that we are enabling impact. We are generating impact and also enabling our designers and engineers to be impactful as well. So this collaboration with the product designers, it makes sense. But to the research question, the thing is that being a designer doesn't mean that you're going to be good at researching. It's a discipline as it's on its own. And so that means that even though we need to make research for design systems, it doesn't mean that we're going to be good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this, what you were talking about having like research ops, it reminds me also, so we had quite a few research things happening last quarter.
Yeah.
And we were doing this yearly survey to understand the satisfaction levels of the design system users and see if we were like matching the needs and blah, 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 all of that. And I had the help of one of the researchers to structure this survey just to make sure that we were covering the constructs and so on. But the thing is that these researchers, they're focusing on the market and on end users. And they don't really have the knowledge of what are design system components, what are tokens. Like, why do you need to ask about tokens and components? They just don't have this understanding.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, I think it makes sense because it should be someone who has this understanding of what's your object, what are you creating,
Yeah. Do you have a more research part on your design ops?
We have a research ops team with 3 members, and then we have a design ops team with 3 members. Then we
okay,
have
so
a
you
design
separate.
system team. Yes.
Okay.
I feel like we have a lot of teams talking here. Yeah, we do have a research ops team that we meet mostly bi-weekly, and then we work together as just you were saying, like as a design ops, I do a lot of research, but I have a team of design and research. So a lot of times I need the research ops to help me, not only constructing the service, but also bringing to me what are the issues of our community on the research side. So they help a lot with that. And they also help a lot with the research tooling. So everything you were saying, Marcia, it's basically that. So helping with creating, making sure that designers have a nice way, and researchers that they have the right tools to use to test whatever they need, and then we make sure that on our side on Figma and other tools that designers also need and use in collaboration. For example, we use Maze that uses both. So this is a tool that touches both Figma and user testing. So that's where we basically collaborate. And it's the first time I'm working with a research ops team, and I'm very happy about it. It works very well. It's really nice to have.
So we have your stamp of approval.
Yes, it works really well. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, because regarding tool management, I think in smaller companies, it's usually sometimes the product designer is concerned, like,
Definitely.
we need this tool manager, please convince someone to approve the budget. And the poor guy has to convince someone until the next quarter or something like that. And I think design ops can help a lot on that
Yes,
tool
that's our
management.
responsibility.
So hopefully that overlap, sadly it happens, but it shouldn't. And that's a clear vision. Hopefully that tool management is not something that a product designer or design system.
Yeah.
Even at design system, not sure, because design system has a lot of tooling itself. So tool management can be tricky as well if it's a design ops topic or a design system topic.
I don't know for you, but for us, design system team often approaches us, like for now with the dev mode, a lot of things went out, and then the lead of design system team came to us and said, hey, I have these issues, my designers are having these issues designing components, or the engineers. So they are kind of the bridge, and then we have the tool, so we have the power to make it work. But that's one thing that I think often people think, if I have a design ops, I'm going to have the tools. We don't give money. We don't have the money with us. We just make sure that we advocate for having the tools, but we don't promise tools to anyone. We cannot say, now here are all the tools you want. So
yeah. There's also another cliche that people think design ops has more power.
Yes.
Or has more, I don't know, influence in some way, and maybe sometimes we have even poor because we are not on a daily basis, or we are not on a product bringing value or whatever. So it could be even more tricky for us to justify because the tool is not for us. So we have to justify, like, these people need, and the budget is for for other people. So
That reminds me that both designers and engineers were very bad at proving that our work brings value. So I think that's where, we don't really know how to calculate ROI or how to create business cases, and sometimes it's needed. So I think that's when design ops can jump in, because you have the tools, you know how to break down the impact versus value versus effort, and then what's the impact that we're delivering. So that's a different perspective that naturally designers don't really have.
So passing to the last question, and I think it will be an easy one, but we can share some cliches that we listen to nowadays. Is design system the same as design ops? So obviously we don't think it is, but I think it's a very common question, because people eventually, this overlap is huge. People that are in this design ops team eventually think that we are doing, like, the design system is the product of it, and the title gets with naming design ops. Did you ever felt this in your career? And you can share.
Go ahead.
I think this is everywhere. I see it everywhere, like all the time. There is a position open that says design systems and ops, and then I'm like, okay, I don't know, maybe it's 50 hours per week. I don't know what it's supposed to mean. I think it's pretty common, especially when you are starting in the market, and if you don't have an idea of these concepts, that you get like a misunderstanding of what they mean. They are different things, although they have the same user. So it's designer, right? So we are talking about designer or researcher, depending on the organization. But the principle is that it's the same user and these teams work together, but normally, unless it's a very small company or it's not really common that you will have someone really working very well on 8 hours per day doing both positions. So be aware when you are looking for, and if you like this kind of topics, and if you would like to work as a design system or design ops, be careful where you go to, and then be careful if you will not get a lot of things to do, because this is a lot of work. It's a very specialized thing, and it's possible to do both. I also have done, I'm pretty sure you do too, every day, and then it's common, but it's not the most optimized way of using these roles.
Absolutely. Also look out for the unicorns and
Yeah.
gurus and ninjas.
UX unicorn is the greatest because
Yeah.
it's a designer that also have front-end engineering text. So
It doesn't mean that you are not, right? So I'm a front-ender. I studied programming, and I still do that. Like, I created now a plugin to help my designers with the Figma template. But that doesn't mean I'm that, right? And I'm a unicorn and I'm like doing everything. So you can be, but be careful, because that normally means less money, a lot of work to do. So
I
just
think-
be careful.
I think the tricky thing is when you have the responsibility. So you
Exactly.
can do a lot of things and you can do a lot of things that you can apply. But if you have the responsibility, that's the tricky part, because knowledge never occupies space, the cliche
Yes.
on the beautiful painting, whatever. But that's the thing, when they put you with the responsibility to do it, I think that's the bad behavior of companies. Like, okay, front end, maybe you can just do the components, and now it's your task. And you're like, okay, I know it's useful, but I don't want to have that title, or eventually something gets wrong and they want to have someone accountable. You don't want to be that person, because knowing is not the same as having the responsibility, right? Yeah.
And having this like all-in-one roles also creates this bad precedent. It's dangerous in a way, because we are kind of showing companies that it's possible to have less people and have more results.
Yes.
Which will eventually lead to burnout and will lead to frustrated teams, because they're not able to make their solutions better. They're just creating and putting fires down. So stay away from those.
And here on the question, I put product, but even on bigger companies, you even have only people for doing UX and people only doing UI. So if you put that, let's say, to a UI person that eventually has to do design ops and has to help on a research topic, they will be like, no, I don't know how to do this. Like, please don't. So it's also interesting for us to advise you today that eventually, let's say that you are a product designer today, which probably the most common situation, and you want to have more space to do design systems or design ops. Try to convince your management or the company, like, it's good to have allocation, maybe 50%, and then jump into 100%, and then do business case to justify why it's good, why it's bad. So you don't become this 3-person in one, and you eventually want to do everything and you don't do with the quality that it's deserved. So I think that's the advice for this topic. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.